Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining my talk. My name is Brendan Mullins. I'm an architect at Stantec Architecture in Los Angeles. I'm currently working on the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art, which is under construction. And today I'm going to be talking about how we are merging fabrication and design models and bringing them into a virtual reality environment. So today we're going to be talking about a few things. I'm going to try to keep it not too technical in BIM and Revit, just to respect the diversity of the audience. But we're going to be talking about what kind of digital assets that we're visualizing now that we didn't previously. We're going to talk about how we're linking subcontractors' digital assets and very heavy models into Revit. And we're going to be talking about the different ways that we're visualizing them, what kind of softwares we're using, and headsets, and how we're presenting them. Just as a heads up, I'm going to be using two buzzwords during this talk. I'm going to be talking about real-time environments, real-time visualization. We're going to think of that as turning the model into a video game environment just on your computer monitor. And then I'll be using VR, which stands for, of course, virtual reality. That's when I'm referring to the headset. I use them interchangeably commonly because the softwares we use let us do either. So those two types of presentation to us are just a case by case, but really the methods for us getting there are the same. So you'll hear me use them interchangeably. So a little bit about the project we're working on. A really exciting project located in Los Angeles. This project is next to the USC Coliseum. It is a large park. As you can see, it takes up several blocks. The project is designed by lead architect Ma Young Song of Mad Architects in Beijing. And to the top left, you can see that would be the Cal Science Museum in Los Angeles. Just off the screen to the left would be the Academy of Sciences. And then that's our project there in the middle. This is a large museum. It's being funded by George Lucas and his wife, Melody Hobson. It's going to be filled with their private art collection, and it's entirely funded by them. As you can see, the architecture is anything but normal. Our responsibility at Stantec is, as executive architect, is to take Mad Architect's vision and turn it into reality. Taking this very futuristic and organic design and putting it on paper is the challenge that we live with every day. Putting a project like this onto an architectural floor plan and presenting it to someone who's not familiar with the project would be looking at a foreign language. It's very difficult to understand this project by seeing it in 2D. Everything we do on this project has to be in 3 dimensions. It has to be modeled, it has to be visualized and shown in perspective, because otherwise it's very difficult to explain what we're trying to get at. So as you can see, you look at this rendering, you get it very quickly. If I were to show you floor plans, obviously it would take a much longer time. The project includes a lot of public space. You know, the organic architecture blends into the surrounding landscapes. The landscape design is done by MLA in Los Angeles. And as you can see, they've done a really good job blending architecture and landscape into itself. This project's going to give back to the public a lot of green space, a lot of area to enjoy outside. So what is narrative art? This is a term coined by George Lucas, and it's really about telling stories through art. You're going to see everything from Norman Rockwell to classics. He has a very large comic book collection. You're, of course, going to be seeing storyboarding and drafting from some of your favorite movies. The board of directors includes the likes of Steven Spielberg and Guillermo del Toro. So you're going to be seeing all sorts of your favorite movies in pop art, as well as some things that you might not expect. So now we're going to get a little bit more into the technicalities of the types of workflows we're using, the types of softwares we're using. So This slide, I like to break down just all the software we're using on, let's say, a weekly basis, mostly a daily basis, and kind of the categories of it. So under collaboration, our team's using Autodesk A360. Just think of that as cloud-based server to host all of our stuff. Bluebeam Studio, one of our lifebloods. This is a cloud-based PDF editor. And we have Autodesk Glue. I'll be talking a bit about this platform, but this is essentially a place to put our models in a very lightweight format in a cloud area and spin them, look at them, dissect them, not edit them. It's just a very quick reader that's cloud-based. We have modeling. We're in cloud-based Revit, Rhino 3D for more technical modeling and computation, and Maya. Maya is where Mad Architects designs. It's a very organic software, more akin to, animation and character design. In computation, our project has a lot of computation design. We have some really great gurus in computation, so we can automate all sorts of tasks. It's been necessary for us to deliver this project on time to automate tasks. We're using Dynamo, Grasshopper, Excel, and then Enscape and Insight Vr are our visualization softwares. Again, those two softwares can take us from Revit straight into VR, or like I said, a real-time environment, more like a video game on your screen. And the thing that excited me about this project, and something I really learned during it, was for all the things that I considered were cutting edge that we did on this project, we did all of them with mostly off-the-shelf common software. Our project, we learned that we didn't need to buy software to solve problems, right? It was about taking the industry standard softwares and figuring out new ways to connect them, new ways to automate tasks within them using computation, and new ways to make them do things that we weren't used to. So, to this slide's photo, it's really about taking, old tools and retooling them, making them do a different purpose than we previously thought. And I think that's really where the innovation was from. And it was also from within. Pushing the boundaries on this project was about having a team that was top down and bottom up. Everybody was on board with pushing the buck. We had principals who were okay with staff taking several days off to automate a task because they understood and they trusted us, that they knew we were convincing them there was a good ROI, that taking staff off for that long to automate a task would save us time down the line. So it was really a culture that we fostered that helped us get to this end result, make it to construction. And what we call the democratization of BIM, which has become quite the buzz word these days. But again, this project has to be in 3D. The project is dependent upon us being in 3D. And for that reason, we had to make sure that leadership and every level of folks on this team were versed in viewing the model. And because of that, we put everything up in the cloud to view these models, and anyone on the team, principal to drafter, could go in there, dissect it, and view it. That means that senior leadership didn't have to come sit at the desk of a young junior staff and say, can you show me this in the model? I want to see it. No, they were empowered to do so. And so having a culture of everyone living in this model was necessary for us to get to this end result. And I might stay here for a minute. And when you look at this slide, what you see is it's great how much information we can portray in these cloud-based model viewers. This is Glue, Navisworks. You can dissect, you can look at building systems, you can see, and nowadays the subcontractors are involved and we're in construction. Sometimes you can get down to the nuts and the bolts, literally. We can get down to that finite of detail. But as an architect, it's not very visually appealing. It lacks shadows, it lacks lighting, it lacks a bit of scale. So it's something we wanted to grow upon. We wanted to be able to have that same agility, quickly visualizing models, but we wanted to do it with an architectural aesthetic. So here on the screen, you see the view as you walk into the main lobby of our project. It's a beautiful shot. It really portrays the feeling that the architect was trying to get across. This rendering was done around DDs, CDs, we'll call that, was done during design. And though it really gives you a good sense of the space, it doesn't necessarily give you specificity. For instance, if you look at the elevators, which are a key feature and something I'm going to be focusing on throughout the rest of this talk, they really look like they're hovering inside of a vacuum. They don't really seem to connect to the building physically, right? Mechanically, they seem to float. They seem to have no structure. And for a rendering like this during design, like that's acceptable, right? We're really just trying to portray a feel. But as we began to work with subcontractors and fabricators, the folks who were going to make this thing so you could touch it, right, and walk up to it, the design changed a bit, right? We had to figure out how they connect to the building, and we had to maintain this feeling of floating, you know, this lightness to the project. So as we got further down the line on the left, you can see I'm kind of looking at a shot underside of elevator. All of a sudden, we need rails. We need to connect this elevator to the building. This is a huge amount of information from the fabricator that we're visualizing in these lightweight formats, able to spin them and dissect them. But in order to know that we're making it to that end goal, we need to be able to visualize them in an architectural aesthetic along the way. And we need to do that quickly. We don't have time to take staff and make renderings for a day or a couple days. We need to be able to very quickly see these heavy fabrication models, and we need to see them in perspective with materiality. And on the right is us striving to get there. So what you see on the right is the subcontractor models. They're live linked. These are the live models they work with every day. But now we're starting to see the materiality. We're seeing lighting. We're seeing the reflections of the glass that you couldn't see on the left. We're seeing the cables that support this elevator. And all of this is coming straight out of our Revit and BIM models. So just a brief overview of workflows. Top left is design team models. That's us, that's Stantec, and that's all of the consultants who work with us. Let's say that's the design team. We have Revit models. We had 28 or so, which is a lot for a project of this size. And in Autodesk C4R, that arrow represents they're in the cloud. They get sent to the cloud to a central file. You know, that's the place we open the file up from and we look at every day. It's the, you know, the combination of all our models. And the bottom left is the subcontractor models and the fabrication models. These are 3D AutoCAD files, essentially. They come from the contractor and they come from a different environment. They're not on our same cloud. So in order to make this workflow seamless, we had to create a piece of software that would automatically upload all of their models onto our cloud every night at midnight, so that when we woke up, and if we had linked their models into our environment, when we woke up, we had the most up-to-date version. So you can kind of see where this is going. We've now taken both the design team and the subcontractors and brought them into our native environment of Revit. Once they're in Revit, those virtual reality, real-time visualization softwares that we have at our fingers, now VR is just a click away. Now that we've got everything in one place that we as architects are used to working with. And model management is key. It's so important when we're doing these kind of workflows. Most people don't visualize subcontractor models likely for the reason that they're huge. It takes time to add materiality. It takes time to weed out all the things that aren't necessary. And so having good BIM practices is necessary. When we set up a view that we're going to take into these environments, we got to turn off every single thing that doesn't matter. Everything that's behind the wall needs to be turned off. Everything that's below the floor. Anything that's in the room next door that you know you're not going to walk into during this presentation. We have to make the lightest environment possible just because of the amount of data we're trying to send into VR. And honestly, that just comes down to BIM management. On our team, I'm the acting BIM manager, But in reality, everybody is so versed at BIM management practices that anyone on my team could become a BIM manager. We really have to take that level of diligence to work with our models. So it's great because the folks on the team, anyone can do this kind of stuff. And some other tips, and apologize for the text-heavy slide, but I can explain all this to you. Really, you just have to get creative. On top of BIM management practices, if we're going to offer this level of services to a client, if we're going to make a client used to going into VR just, with a few hours notice, with a day's notice, they call up and they have a meeting and they want to visualize something, we have to be agile and we have to know how to save time. So for instance, a lot of our project is public space. As you saw, we have plazas that can be full of people. We have lobbies that are expansive that can be full of people. And obviously, folks like to see people standing in these environments so that you have scale. Space makes no sense without scale. So we figure out ways to automate crowd generation using Dynamo. It's a great way to save some time, right? We can have Dynamo randomly place people around a space. Placing people could take, you'd be surprised, it can take hours, it can take an hour or two. If we have a script set up, we can just unload people into a space and then that space is ready to go. Same with trees. We found that we wanted to have accurate tree placement. Well, we could automate the placement from landscape drawings using Dynamo. We could acquire XY or XYZ coordinates and then put Revit trees everywhere that could be rendered. So we just had to get creative about the way that we saved time so that we could continue to offer this service. The two softwares we're using are Enscape and Insight Vr. These are Revit plugins that allow us with the click of a button to go straight from our Revit environment into a real-time or a VR environment. The images you're going to see and you have been seeing that are rendered in this presentation are from Enscape. Enscape has a high level of aesthetic. It's great when you're trying to look at specifics of materiality. It also does 360-degree renderings very well, which we'll talk about a little bit. And then you have Insight VR, where the aesthetic lacks, maybe the features are more robust. You have multiplayer virtual reality. So we can take everybody into the model at the same time with wearable headsets on, which has really been a game changer for certain types of meetings. And we have many different flavors of virtual reality. So, of course, you guys are all familiar with the Google Cardboard. We always do branded Google Cardboards. We really like to make an impression with it. We usually include a business card that can have a QR code or a URL that'll take the client or stakeholders or whoever is going to use it straight to the experience that we're giving them. We have a client whose board of directors is spread all over the nation. We can mail these. We can pass them out. They're cheap enough that they're leave behinds. So this is a great tool that's affordable and surprisingly robust with 360-degree renderings or 360-degree movies. Or there's the Cadillac, right? This is 6 VR computers, 6 VR headsets. In this case, you can see it's in a boardroom environment. So if we have stakeholders or a client sitting at the boardroom table, we can give them a presentation. Then we can prep them about the VR experience that's about to happen, and they simply have to get up and walk over to the computers. We would have 5 computers that are dedicated for the folks going into VR as part of the meeting. And the last computer would be for someone like myself, a tour guide. There's a huge sociology factor with virtual reality. For instance, single player VR we've found can be awkward for folks. For instance, if someone puts it on in front of their superior, it's almost like they've been blindfolded in front of their superior and they can feel embarrassed or nervous. We have found that multiplayer VR is much easier for people to jump in. People are less timid to get in because, let's say, their supervisor or just from basic cold feet from being in a room full of strangers, whatever it may be, it exists on a much smaller level because everybody's doing this together. So we can get everyone in VR and they can feel comfortable. And then me as a tour guide can wrangle them back if anybody wanders off. And I can point with a laser pointer in VR and I can have a curated experience, which is what we as architects like and strive for. So to show a little bit about, what the end product is, this is the rendering that we started with. Again, those elevators are where we're going to be focusing. And now we have our real-time experience, our real-time visualization. This is our VR experience, what it looks like now. And it doesn't look very different from this level, from this scale. But when you get up closer, then you can see that there's been a huge change of detail. Every nut and bolt now as you approach this elevator core is shown. The lighting is shown, the materiality is shown, reflection, scale with people. And we have dozens of drawings from the design team to explain these elevators, and probably hundreds from the subcontractors to get them built. Now, in just one image, in perspective, in VR or in a real-time environment, you instantly understand what these elevators are about. And because it's real-time, you can take any angle instantly. This batch of images can take me a couple minutes to produce and to put into this slideshow presentation. And what I really like is you start to see the hardware, the things you touch in order to call the elevator to you, as you can see in the middle, the call buttons. And then you get real up close and you can see all the care that we as the architect have put into making this thing come to life, trying to make very clean lines and very clean connections. And now when we show this to the client, we can get instant buy-off. They know what they're expecting. And then when we show it to the other design team, they can instantly understand it too from a coordination perspective, so we can get it designed and built. I know that was a lot in a short amount of time. I'm available, of course. Any email inquiries, please reach out. Happy to answer your questions. My email is the best place to get me at brennan.mullins@stantec.com. And now I'd like to open it up for questions. Thanks for your time.